It's no secret that the MCU's Captain Marvel really hasn't connected with audiences the way the studio would have liked. Kevin Feige and his team seem to think that she would become the new face of Marvel, filling in the immense gap left behind by Iron Man and Captain America.
How dare you stand where he stood?
But nearly half a decade later, she's left little to no impact on fans of the franchise. So why is that? Well, I think it all stems from her debut film. You see, the way Captain Marvel handles its Amnesia plot not only weakens the film itself, but is also why many fans can't seem to connect emotionally to the new hero. So to better understand why that is, let's compare it to Christopher Nolan's Memento, a film that remembers to do memory loss the right way.
It's my memory.
Amnesia.
If you want to make an Amnesia plot compelling, you need to establish three main elements, the first of which is perspective. Who we focus on during a movie is almost as important as the plot. This is why it's critical to make the viewer feel a connection to the main character. Normally, Amnesia is a great way to lock the audience into the perspective of the protagonist. It lends immediacy and gravitas to whatever is happening on screen. When the main character knows as little as we do, each revelation is just as impactful for them as it is for the audience, making it easy to empathize with them. Unfortunately, Captain Marvel winds up having the exact opposite effect because of when the movie begins. The film opens roughly 4 years after Carol lost her memories and was taken in by the Kree, and this is a huge problem. Not only are we trying to understand who Carol was before losing her memories, but we also have to figure out who she became between then and now.
It's all blank.
She knows more than we do, so we can't project ourselves onto her directly, yet she doesn't know enough to be a fully fleshed out character that we can get invested in. As a result, the audience feels incredibly disconnected from Carol as we watch her story play out. Conversely, Memento's entire structure is designed to put you in the shoes of the protagonist and keep you there for the full runtime.
It's the first person. It's very much his thoughts as he's thinking them.
Leonard, the main character, has a condition that prevents him from forming new memories.
Amnesia.
No. It's different from that. I have no short-term memory.
Every few minutes, he kind of resets and has to rely on handwritten notes or tattoos in order to remember where he is and what exactly he was trying to do.
You really do need a system if you're gonna make it work.
The movie's narrative is structured out of order, playing out in small chunks with the black and white sequences moving forward in time and the sequences with color playing out in reverse. This format beautifully simulates the character's memory loss and makes it so that we have all the same questions that he does.
Who the is Dodd?
When he gets paranoid about who he can trust, so do we. And when it's revealed that a character is manipulating him,
I can say whatever the I want. You won't remember.
You become just as angry and helpless as he is. Aside from his condition,
Well, that's the thing. I have this condition.
Leonard isn't that complex of a character, but it honestly doesn't matter given how emotionally in sync with him the audience is. If Captain Marvel had simply started right when Carol was abducted, the film's perspective would have been so much more compelling. Seeing her wake up in a strange civilization, trying to make sense of who she is and why she has mysterious powers would have been a fascinating story to follow. But because they chose to start things way later, there's no moment that makes us want to latch on to the main character, which is a problem that persists to this day. Since her debut, she's consistently depicted as an outsider and has yet to receive a moment that really defines her as a character and endears her to the audience. Even in her own movie, it feels like the side characters are way more developed. Aside from the fact that she gets knocked down, but she gets up again, we really don't see what exactly makes Carol Danvers tick, which is
Crazy.
Brie Larson is an Oscar-winning actress, but for some reason, Marvel decided to put her in a role with practically zero flaws or character traits. Even if you remove the Amnesia plot, there really isn't anything in her character for audiences to latch onto.
It's all blank.
I think Disney was so focused on Captain Marvel representing women as a monolith that they forgot to make Carol her own person. Ironically, the broader approach corporations take when it comes to representation, the fewer people that the content actually connects with. I'd wager that far more people actually saw parts of themselves in a character like Shang-Chi's sister because she has, well, character. The film's utter lack of strong perspective also deeply impacts the second element that all stories of this nature need. Stakes are the lifeblood of any good story, but they're doubly important when your narrative involves amnesia. Without the context of who a character is, you need conflict to drive the story forward rather than personality. In Memento, Christopher Nolan's screenplay beautifully establishes and maintains high stakes in a number of ways. The most obvious is through the opening.
No!
Starting the film with our main character shooting a guy immediately puts the audience on edge. From moment one, we know that this narrative is building to a violent conclusion, which also makes it reasonable to expect violence throughout the whole film. The audience is always on high alert, and as the facts begin to present themselves, we know everything is not as it seems. In a similar vein, many of the individual sections start with some sort of chaos or threat, be it Leonard desperately searching for something or someone searching for him. By confronting the main character with threats almost constantly, it doesn't matter if he forgets what he was just doing or why he was doing it. There is always something in the scene that forces him to react, creating short-term stakes despite his lack of short-term memory.
I guess I've already told you about my condition.
Now, when it comes to his long-term goals, that's where the tattoos and notes come in. Even though he repeatedly loses his memories, what Leonard chooses to write down allows us to understand his core motivations and character traits. It paints a clear picture of who this man is and the values he retains despite his memory loss. Seeing someone with such a singular goal in mind makes it legitimately difficult not to be invested in how their story plays out, but that logic goes both ways. Part of the reason it's so hard to get invested in Captain Marvel's story is because they throw so much at you all at once. In Act 1 alone, you're bombarded with exposition about Carol being taken in by the Kree, her having mysterious powers, flashbacks to her life before the Kree, her friendship with Jude Law, whether or not she's ready to go on combat missions, the conflict with the Skrulls from the Kree's point of view, and glimpses at the objective truth. Now, this isn't all that hard to make sense of, but the issue is that we're not given a reason to care. Objectively speaking, these are all high stakes issues, but as an audience, we're not invested because we haven't been shown how this affects the main character. The Kree imply that the Skrulls are responsible for Carol's memory loss.
You are just one victim of the Skrull expansion.
But it never feels like she has a vendetta against them. When she pursues them, it's only because she's part of Star Force, not because she's personally invested in taking them down. Speaking of Star Force, it's implied that she's wanted to be a part of them for a while now.
Your commander insists that you're fit to serve.
But the movie never shows her struggle to prove herself, so it never feels like an accomplishment. We're told in flashbacks that people have always doubted her, but we never watch that happen firsthand, making this moment
I have nothing to prove to you.
feel completely unearned. When it comes to her amnesia, sure, Carol wants to get her memories back, but it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. We never see her wrestling with her own identity, and it's not made clear what regaining her memories would actually mean for the character. In the animated film Anastasia, the main character is an orphan who longs for a family. When she remembers that she's actually a duchess, it's significant because it means reuniting with her grandmother. However, when Maria and Monica Rambeau remind Carol of her past, it doesn't really change much. Which brings me to perhaps the most important element of any story about amnesia. Recontextualization is arguably the main reason that writers utilize memory loss in their narratives. Withholding information from the audience means that when something is eventually revealed, it should have a significant impact, fundamentally changing how we see aspects of the story. But in Captain Marvel, it really doesn't change anything. Yeah, we learned that the Kree were lying to her and that the Skrulls are actually just refugees, but that just swaps one generic set of bad guys with another.
Everything that I knew was a lie.
The movie tries to make it feel like a betrayal when Star Force turns against Carol, but we never saw them have any meaningful relationship. They even outright say that she didn't get along with some of them from the very beginning.
Is that why we never hung out?
No, I just never liked you.
This is another reason why starting 4 years after her abduction was such a bad choice. If we saw how Jude Law took Carol under his wing, using Star Force to give her a sense of community and purpose, the big twist would shake the very foundation of who Carol thought she was. It could have been like Obi-Wan and Anakin, two people who legitimately love each other, but are torn apart by opposing ideologies. Even if they stuck to starting 4 years later, it would have made so much more sense to have Star Force come to Earth with her, but instead, they're just floating around in space for 80% of the movie, meaning that we really don't care when they show back up as the twist villains. The biggest flop of all, though, is the reveal of Captain Marvel's identity.
My name is Carol.
The film expects us to think it's a big deal when Vers is revealed to be Carol Danvers, but the revelation doesn't recontextualize anything. Personality-wise, we go from a cocky generic Space Force cadet to a cocky generic fighter pilot. These two personalities neither conflict nor complement each other in any meaningful way. In a game like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the big twist is that the main character is actually Darth Revan, one of the most threatening Sith Lords in the entire Star Wars canon. If up until this point you've played the game as a Jedi, you're forced to reconcile your evil past with the hero you've since become. If you focused on the dark side during your playthrough, this reveal is a culmination of your journey. You now realize that it is your destiny to retake the position that was stolen from you. But the audience doesn't get invested in either version of Captain Marvel, so it doesn't matter whether she's Vers or Carol. Memento, on the other hand, uses recontextualization perfectly. On a small scale, each sequence in color goes back in time and recontextualizes the previous section. In one chapter, we see Leonard taking a shower before a stranger seemingly breaks into his hotel room. The two get into a fight, and we're left wondering who this guy is and why he's there. In the next chapter, it's revealed that this man was chasing Leonard, who snuck back to the attacker's hotel room in order to ambush him. But Leonard's memory resets in the bathroom, meaning he thinks he's in his own room, which is why he takes a shower. On a larger scale, the big twist of the movie recontextualizes everything we've seen up until that point. At the very end of the movie, it's revealed that Leonard already got his revenge on the real John G. Teddy, the corrupt cop who helped him get that revenge, has since been taking advantage of Leonard's memory loss, making him think that whoever Teddy wants taken out is the John G that he's after.
I helped you find him over a year ago. He's already dead.
An angry Leonard then writes down Teddy's license plate, ensuring that he will be the next, and potentially final, John G.
No!
Not only does this explain the opening of the film, but it dramatically recontextualizes Leonard's whole character. He thought he was a man on a righteous path, seeking out revenge on the villain who wronged him, but it turns out that he was just being used to take out random scumbags. Sure, Teddy was taking advantage of him, but did a part of Lenny choose to go along with it because it was easier than facing the truth?
So you lie to yourself to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. We all do it.
You can tell that it's a fantastic revelation because if you go back and rewatch the movie, it completely changes how you view what's happening on screen. But rewatching Captain Marvel doesn't feel rewarding in the slightest. If anything, the supposed recontextualization just makes the first half of the movie feel utterly pointless. In Multiverse of Madness, even if it's out of character, Scarlet Witch being the bad guy feels impactful because we are deeply invested in Wanda's character. But Captain Marvel expects the audience to be surprised that the random faction you don't care about is actually good. In reality, it's impossible to care about any of it. Sadly, that apathy continues to this day. With the Marvels set to be the second time Carol Danvers is in a lead role, I truly hope they find a way to make us care about the character. But as it stands, the way they handled Captain Marvel's Amnesia in her debut made her the most forgettable hero in the MCU. For more thoughtful analysis of film and television, subscribe and check out why The Witcher teaches us how not to do a battle sequence. I'm Dylan, and this has been The Writer's Block.